Welcome to Season 4, Episode 14 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm going to be working with AJ Juliani to share some thoughts on how Genius Hour can transform your students' motivation levels and ignite their creativity. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the blog post, links to recommended resources, and to share your thoughts on the show. So Genius Hour is a movement in schools that allows students to explore their own passions. The concept for Genius Hour is derived in part from the idea of 20% time. So this is Google's work structure for its employees. They're allowed to spend 20% of their time on projects that they design and are interested in. So the idea is that when people are allowed to work on things they care about, their motivation for the job as a whole will increase. So that's sort of the idea with Genius Hour as well. Empower kids to uncover their passions and skills and strengths, their genius, if you will, and their motivation and creativity and achievement will then increase across the board. What I wanted to do here on the show is to bring you the best of Genius Hour. I wanted to share what the most effective teachers are doing in this area and how they're doing it so that you can learn from their experiences. So I've invited AJ Juliani to share his observations. You may remember AJ from being a guest on Truth for Teachers back in Season 1, Episode 10. He was here talking about how to overcome frustration due to constant change. Not only do I consider AJ to be a friend, but I also consider him to be one of the pioneers of the Genius Hour movement, and he's a true expert on this topic. AJ is very much in touch with classroom teachers who are implementing Genius Hour. He's a former innovation specialist and is the current Director of Technology and Innovation for Centennial School District. It's just north of Philadelphia, PA. So AJ is spending a lot of time listening to teachers and watching what works and what doesn't. AJ has created an entire online community of educators who are discussing Genius Hour. So he's seeing and checking in with them day by day and seeing how things are going and reading about their success stories. And he's also created an editable Genius Hour journal and an online Genius Hour course for teachers. So he's speaking from a really broad context here of supporting hundreds of teachers as they try out these ideas. AJ has seen some really powerful transformations in student motivation and really even beyond student motivation in learning, in attitude, and behavior. Some really awesome things are happening because of Genius Hour. So he and I are going to discuss some best practices that will help you see those same kinds of results in your classroom too. So here's AJ and I talking. So AJ, let's clarify what Genius Hour is and what it isn't.
So I think when people hear the term Genius Hour, they hear the term 20% time, and they hear the term passion projects, they often think it's just this free time where kids get to do whatever they want. But really what Genius Hour is flipping the script on how we traditionally learn in schools. And the way we traditionally learn in schools is by choosing a specific piece of content and then having students learn a skill by going through that content. What Genius Hour does is it gives students the choice to choose their content, what they want to learn, what they're interested about, but still hit the same skills and standards as you need to hit on the K through 12 spectrum. So Genius Hour is, if you want to think about it as a metaphor, it's not just giving the keys to your kid and saying, go ahead in the car and drive wherever you want. And it's not sitting in the back seat. It's right next to them as they're having their permit, as they're first getting their license, in driver's ed with them, navigating alongside with them, helping them, guiding them, being that facilitator, and ultimately getting them to the destination they want to go to.
I love that analogy. That's perfect. And I really like how you talked about how this is about still making sure kids are hitting all the standards. And that's, to me, I think that's one of the most important things that teachers have to figure out is how are you going to teach all the standards and make time for this? How do you fit Genius Hour into your day? So I'd love to hear from your experience. How often are teachers holding Genius Hour? And how often do you think that it should be held?
So I think at the different levels, you're going to have different ways to do it. A lot of times at the elementary level, you're doing it once a week. And at the elementary level, that's why a lot of people call it specifically Genius Hour, because they give an hour to it. And Genius Hour really fits in well with nonfiction, right? It fits in with the reading, writing, speaking, listening, viewing, all of those standards that we see across the country and really around the world that you're going to have in any type of standards-based education. And so teachers are doing an hour a week. And really, if you think about the steps in Genius Hour, you're taking time to develop your interest, research your interest, and then make something based on that interest. And so you're hitting all different types of standards, and it really fits into that literacy, that reading, that nonfiction piece at elementary level. Now, other people have fit into the STEM piece because it does fit in there with creation as well, but I love that nonfiction piece because you are doing research. At the middle school level, because we're getting into subjects now, right? The topics can be more refined, and that's where it starts getting called 20% time, because instead of just an hour, often people are doing 20% of the week. And so, when I did it at a middle school and a high school, I chose Fridays. We were working hard Monday through Thursday, and Friday was time for Genius Hour, and 20% of our week, right? We had 45 minutes, and that's where we're really diving into what they were interested in, creating products that were solving problems. And so I've seen teachers around the world really at that 6 through 12 level focus on more of a 20% time. It doesn't always have to be an hour, once a week. The other big thing I would say is it doesn't need to be all year long. Pick a 6, 8 week, 10-week period that you're going to do Genius Hour, and then kind of, if you want to do it again, do another project. It doesn't need to be a full semester or a year. Sometimes that can really just drag on too long.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I talk to teachers, I find that one of the most challenging parts for them seems to be in figuring out how to sort of scaffold their learning without taking away students' ability to direct their own learning. What would you say about that? How should teachers support students with Genius Hour, particularly if kids haven't had a lot of opportunities to take charge of their learning? What kinds of structures can teachers provide?
So I really think that even though Genius Hour is all about choice in terms of what they want to learn, teachers have to have a definite structure of what the process of learning looks like, right? And I always tell teachers this. I say a kid in your class wants to learn how to make their own video game. You may not be the expert in how to make a video game, but you're still the expert learner in the classroom, right? You're the master learner. You know what that looks like. And so there's really kind of a 5-step process to Genius Hour that I really recommend in both my books and courses and articles online when I'm working with people. Is the first thing is that look, listen, and learn. The having students look around them, figure out what they really want to learn, what problems they care about, or what things they're interested in. And from that stage, you go into them presenting to the entire class a very short Shark Tank pitch, right? So we all know the Shark Tank. If you want to be Mark Cuban for a day like me, you do Shark Tank for one day, right?
Love Shark Tank.
Yeah. Basically, the way it works is each student gets 30 seconds to a minute to share 4 slides or 4 pieces of paper to the rest of the class of what they're actually going to do with their Genius Hour. So the 4 slides are, number 1, what you're going to learn and what you're going to make. Number 2, why you're going to learn it and why you're going to make it, right? The reason behind it. Number 3, how you're going to actually learn and make this. What's the steps that you're going to choose as a student? And number 4, what is going to be successful in your mind? So each student gets up after they have their idea, and now they're presenting to their peers exactly what they're going to do. This gives that positive peer pressure and accountability without slapping a grade on it, where they want to follow what they said they're going to do. After that, I always have students create an action plan. Now, in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, it looks a lot different than it does in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, right? The action plan. But the action plan is pretty simple. What are the steps that you're going to take to learn it? And what are the steps you're going to take to make whatever you want to make? And then as a teacher, you work alongside them to come up with kind of some due dates, just like a project management of when they're going to get through those different action steps. As a teacher, that also makes it nice because throughout the project, you can go in and check in with each student, having short little conferences, 2 to 3 minute conferences. Hey, where are you in your action steps? How's your plan going? Are you accomplishing it? Are you failing but learning from what you're failing at? finally, you're having students documenting along the way, right? So they're sharing what they learn, they're sharing what they're failing, and they're also just sharing about the process. The last thing that we typically do is have students present on what they learned and what they made, and sharing their product with their class and with the world, inviting the community in, live streaming it, putting it out there. In the K through 2 through 3 space, a lot of times this is a gallery walk, the wax museum concept, where you have kids around the room all presenting, you bring the people in. But as you get to the older levels, that's where you want to kind of put them on a stage, have them that TED type style presentation, 3 to 5 minutes, where they're sharing what they learned, what they failed at, what they succeeded at with the world.
That's a lot of accountability there. That's a lot of ways for teachers to make sure that students are actually learning. They're just not wasting time. Yes. I really, really like that. Are students actually assessed on these projects? Is a grade ever given?
Yeah. So, when I first did this, right, I was an 11th grade teacher, and my biggest problem I was having is I had students that were just playing the game of school, right? Angela, you have those students that are following along, playing the game of school, but they're not really interested in learning. They're just interested in getting a grade. Yes. So when I did it, I kind of bucked the trend, and I said to my students, you're not getting a grade for this. And it was like gasps of horror in my classroom, right? They were like, Mr. J, I can't believe you're not giving us a grade. How are we going to do this? Can you just give me a worksheet? They were freaking out. But since then, I've done Genius Hour with teachers in elementary school and middle school. And in a lot of situations, teachers felt like they needed to give a grade for some accountability. And what we really use across the spectrum in Genius Hour is something called the GRIT rubric, which I'm sure we can put in the show notes. And it's a fantastic resource. Of course. The GRIT rubric is a process-driven rubric. So you're not grading students on the final product. You're just grading them on the Genius Hour process. And GRIT is an acronym. It stands for guts, resiliency, integrity, and tenacity. And so you can grade them throughout the process on whether or not they are hitting those indicators of having guts, of having the tenacity of really going after a big problem, of having the integrity of not cutting corners, and really having the resiliency when you fail, of getting back up and trying again. And so people really love that GRIT rubric. It was developed by the San Francisco College Track, and a lot of people have modified it. But that's a great process-driven rubric that I've seen all the way from elementary to middle school to high school.
I love that. Can we talk about some examples of Genius Hour projects you've seen? Let's start with what's happening in elementary school. What does a typical project look like for, let's say, a 3rd or a 4th grader who's just starting out with Genius Hour, their very first attempt? What would a teacher expect to see?
So I think a lot of this is how you're kind of presenting Genius Hour. What I found is the best way to kind of front load and scaffold Genius Hour at the elementary level is to show all the students a video of Kane's Arcade. I don't know if you're familiar with Kane's Arcade, and we can link to it, but Kane was a young boy, elementary age, who actually, in his dad's shop, his dad owned a car shop, created an arcade all out of cardboard. The entire thing was out of cardboard, and he made different games out of cardboard and tickets and dispensers for tickets, and nobody really came to it, but eventually somebody came, loved it, and they had a flash mob of people that went to Kane's Arcade. And when the students watch this, they see that even something as small as cardboard can be used to create something great, and can be used to create something that is really going to solve a problem in the world, that's going to impact people and make a positive impact. And so what I see a lot of 3rd, 4th, 5th graders doing is creating something and solving some type of problem that they care about, right? That's more than just an insurance, but something they care about. We just had a 3rd grade student in my school district last year that really wanted to do something about bullying that was going on. And so they created a positive sticky note campaign around the school, where she got every single classroom in the entire school for each student to write positive notes on sticky notes, and then they would place them around the school. And as the students were walking through the hallways, they'd see positive reminders about different people. And it really wasn't saying don't bully, it was saying we can still be nice and make a positive impact. And so we see projects like that. Another 4th grader last year was really into gaming, right? They were excited about going home and playing video games like a lot of our young students are. And so a teacher worked with this student to say, hey, how would you like to make your own video game? And they use the software Scratch, which is developed by MIT, and really for students that are kind of 14 and under. And he developed his own video game using Scratch and looking at some tutorials online. We've had students build entire cities and replicas of the school in Minecraft. And so really it's just kind of taking what they're interested in, what problems they want to solve, and then the skill sets that they have and kind of can grow on through Genius Hour to create some of those projects.
How about at the secondary level? What should middle and high school teachers expect from their students' first projects? And if there's any pitfalls you can think about that teachers should avoid, let us know about that too.
So at the secondary level, it's a little bit different because students start getting a bit more self-conscious.
Right.
Third graders and fourth graders don't care about sharing their dreams and attacking big problems. But when you get to 8th, 9th, 10th grade, 11th grade, you start getting students that are a little bit self-conscious about putting themselves out there. And so the biggest pitfall that you're going to have is students who are afraid to fail in front of their peers, right? They don't want to try something and fail and have it documented in front of everybody. And so one of the biggest things that teachers are doing, and I did in my classroom, is creating an epic failure board. So I did this before, every student had a computer. And in my classroom, I took one of those bulletin boards that didn't really have anything on it and replaced it with what we call the epic failure board. And every week when we came in for Genius Hour, I would put up there something that I failed at during the week, something I failed at as a teacher. And then students started putting up, I was trying this project and I failed doing this. I was getting these bands to run a fundraiser and I failed doing this. And so the celebration of failure led to students doing a lot of different types of products. At the high school level and the middle school level, you're going to have students that are already really interested in some things. They've kind of started to figure out a little bit who they are, and so they dive into some things. I've had students that really care about, doing something with cloning plants, and they're trying to do a whole process with that. And I've had other students that want to rebuild a motorcycle engine. And I've had students that wanted to choreograph a dance because they never had a chance to do that from start to finish. They were a dancer, but they never got to make their own dance. One project in particular that I want to share that really touched me is I had a young girl in my class who her aunt and her young cousin had a house fire, and they came to live with them at the house. And she had originally wanted to create her own sandals, and she was designing and making her own sandals, but she ended up changing her project. And she changed her project because she wanted to learn sign language because her young cousin, who was 4 years old, was deaf. And because they were coming to live with them, because of the house fire, she had never had a chance. She played sports, she worked, she never had a chance to learn sign language. And so now Genius Hour gave her that chance to learn sign language. Now she could have conversations at her house with her cousin, and her final project was putting on a song, I Hope You Dance, with sign language for her cousin. And it was just the most impactful thing. It was very personal to her, but it also was very personal to all of us as a class as we got to learn about her and her life and about her cousin. And so I think Genius Hour is not always about just the projects that the students do, but also what we learn about each other in the classroom from the projects that they do.
That is such an amazing story. I love that so much. What is it that you think makes Genius Hour so powerful? How are things like this happening in classrooms through Genius Hour? What's so different about this?
Well, Angela, we all live in this world where, if I asked you to raise your hand, if you know an adult that's unhappy with their job, we'd all raise our hand. And sometimes that adult would be us, right? and there's tons of people that work and just are getting by. And it's because they've just kind of played this game, right? This game that if you do well in school, you're going to get into a college. And then if you do well in college, you got an internship, and then you'll get a job, and then you'll get a house, and you'll live this life. But so many of us aren't doing what we're interested and passionate about. And it's because, we have 14,000 hours. I did the math, right? We have 14,000 hours, over 14,000 hours that we see students in school, K through 12. How much of that time are we actually giving them choice in what they want to learn and what they want to do and what they want to make? And when they leave our doors in 12th grade, that's all they have is choice. So what makes Genius Hour powerful is giving students choice, empowering them to make something and learn something that they're interested in, but also at the same time preparing them for success outside of our walls and actually giving them the opportunity to model what it's going to be like to be a learner and a creator well beyond their school years. And so I think that connection makes it very powerful. And it really is a different experience for a lot of students and a lot of teachers. And because it's different, it's hard, right? It's a challenge sometimes. And that also brings the community, the classroom together, because you know you're doing something that actually matters and is actually changing personal lives, but also kind of an overall conception of what you can do inside of school. And so we've seen Genius Hour, and there's great stories just around the country and around the world, but it all comes back to students actually having that choice in what they do, just like they're going to have that choice the rest of their lives.
Okay, I am sold. I am so excited. This makes me want to just run out and start learning more about Genius Hour and start using it, start seeing this happen in classrooms. So I want you to talk in detail about where teachers can learn more and get support, because I know that you have resources. I know you have a course available. So talk us through this, because I think a lot of teachers are hesitant to get started because this is a completely new direction for them. They don't know how to do it, and they really want someone to make sure that someone who has kind of thought out the different pitfalls for them ahead of time and provided that structure for them. And I know you've done that for teachers, so I would love for you to really tell us about what it is that you have to offer.
So, Angela, I've been doing this for a while, right? It's been 6 or 7 years since I started Genius Hour, and I've been writing about it on my blog at ajjuliani.com for 6 years. I've been speaking around the country about Genius Hour. I wrote a book called Inquiry and Innovation in the Classroom about Genius Hour. And every single time I get to work with a group of teachers about Genius Hour, it came back to the same questions again, which is a lot of the questions you're asking. How do I assess this? What does it look like in my actual subject area? What does it look like with students my age? How can I get buy-in from the parents? How can I get buy-in from my colleagues, from my principal, right? There's all these kind of questions. And then there's the questions of how to actually run the project successfully so it doesn't kind of fall flat and students don't get the experience that I want, right? And so, last year I was working with a group of teachers, and I realized that, this school had paid a lot of money for me to come out and work with their teachers, and they're getting a great experience because they got resources and will walk step by step every part of the process. And, one of the teachers just made a side comment saying, I wish I had access to this online, or I wish I had this a year ago. And it got me thinking that, people needed something a bit more comprehensive. They needed something that was going to take them from the idea of Genius Hour to running it in their classroom and give them resources every single step of the way of that process that I shared earlier. And so I created the Genius Hour Master Course. The Genius Hour Master Course is really a step-by-step guide to rocking this project in your classroom, to not just running it, but to rocking this. And we now have over 800 people that are enrolled in this course, a private Facebook community where the teachers get to talk about Genius Hour and share their strategies and ask questions, webinars each month for people that are in this course, 10 modules long. There's over 70 videos, and all the videos are about 5 to 10 minutes long, short snippets, resources. There's a Genius Hour journal, which is basically a PowerPoint and student notebook that takes you every single step along the way of Genius Hour. And what I've seen so far after putting together this Genius Hour Master Course is that this is exactly what teachers wanted. This is exactly what they needed because teachers are busy, right? Now, I was a teacher for 10 years, and it's extremely busy to just kind of go in there, create all these resources on your own, create a schedule on your own, the PowerPoints, the videos, all those different types of things. And what the Genius Hour Master Course is not just give you a kickstart, but actually walks you through step by step every single way with resources and also videos and also the community to help you not only get started, but be successful time after time after time and really learn from a lot of other people who are doing it around the world.
That's so awesome, because I know that's the missing piece for a lot of teachers. There are a lot of teachers who want someone to take the guesswork out so that they can focus on the really rewarding part of this endeavor, which is watching kids uncover their genius. That's why I'm so excited that you have this course available. And that's why I'm so proud to be an affiliate for the course, because there's nothing else like it. It just fills such an important need. All the logistics are taken care of so that teachers can really just focus on the kids and their learning. So if you're listening and you're ready to get started, or if you just want to see more about the resources that AJ has to offer, you'll want to head over to geniushourmastercourse.com. geniushourmastercourse.com. That's a special link just for listeners of Truth for Teachers. And by purchasing there, I'll get a small commission at no extra cost to you. So geniushourmastercourse.com. I always close out the show with something that I call the takeaway truth. So this is just a short but powerful sentence or quote that I want teachers to remember in the week ahead. So can you give us a takeaway truth for this week?
Yes. All right. So this takeaway truth is something that has really shifted my paradigm as a teacher, and something that I share with a lot of people when I speak. And here it is. Our job as teachers is not to prepare students for something. Our job as teachers is to help students prepare themselves for anything.
Fantastic. Thank you, AJ, for being here, and thanks to all of you for listening. Have a great week, and remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it. Truth for Teachers is a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. For more great podcast recommendations, go to edupodcastnetwork.com. That's edupodcastnetwork.com.